Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Academy. As always, I'm your host, Cardi-C, and tonight we bring one of the hobby's premier one-of-one hockey collectors. This is a gentleman whose mission it is to build out the most sought-after museum-like collection of rare hockey cards. You'll know him as Lee's Sports Cards on Instagram. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Matt to the channel. Matt, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So can you kick things off by just telling us a little bit about your background in the hobby and what you collect?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question, but I was in and out of the hobby as a kid. I collected Cujo rookie cards and Ed Belfours and whoever else was at the time, Joe Sakic's. And as I got a little bit older, I kind of bounced back into it, 2010 range. John Tavares got drafted, and suddenly, I was kind of into it again very quickly. Like most people, I started off collecting Young Guns, Future Watch autos, right? The basic stuff. But over time, I started to get a desire to have things that were a little bit more rare, a little more challenging to collect. Add a little bit of chase to the whole, collectability side of things. And it developed into the cup. Mostly, I collect. I do the sets. I build top patches. I'm always looking for the most number of colors, most difficult patch.
Yeah.
And then, I think the natural extension of that was that, one-of-one rookies, so, ultimate shields, one-of-one cup black, black shields, those all became really important and really interesting to me going down that line.
Now we're gonna talk a lot about that tonight because I feel like that's a very important progression to break down. Sitting where I am, I'm a collector who's been in the hobby for a couple of years now. I'm moving progressively to more rare cards, but what I find myself falling into is just a rut of impatience. If I can't get a card and I'm waiting 6 to 8 months for it, that card will fall off my watch list or I'll just pivot to something else. Can you speak a little bit to just like the patience that you need when you're chasing one-of-one cards like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, look, I always tell my wife I have 3 Christmases, right? Regular Christmas, cup release day, and ultimate release day. And the reason why that is because, in that first fury of cracking, people will hit the most number of shields per day, right? And naturally,
Yeah.
that means that I'll have the most things to chase, right? So you're right. I mean, it does take some discipline. I have looked at certain other cards that I thought about collecting, Premier one-of-ones, SPX one-of-ones, and I kind of turned away from them. They weren't really my thing, right?
Yeah.
But that all kind of accumulates into that idea that you're kind of mentioning, where it's you got to be kind of patient, right? Thankfully, I also collect cups, so I mean, cup is more abundant. You're able to find kind of more cards here and there, so the mail days they don't stop necessarily.
Now, when you're collecting cup one-of-ones, like the cup is, I know we have a lot of viewers on the channel that might not be super familiar with hockey. So maybe we stop and we introduce like what the cup is. Maybe if you have any cards close by, you can show one of them off.
Yeah,
But just set the stage for the
the cup
viewers
is
out
kind of
there.
like hockey's national treasures. I think that's the best way to put it, right? It's the most, it's the highest end product. It's the premier item. I'm just trying to pull something up for you guys. It's cards like this, right? Where it's,
Look at
it's
that.
an autograph, it's a patch, it's a rookie card, right? And a card like this, for example, has it's 5 colors, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Similar like Matt Barzell, similar idea, right? So I'm just trying to get the glare off your screen, but it's kind of that idea where it's just like it kind of combines all the best things about collecting. Short print usually, a patch, an autograph, and a rookie card.
So with that as the backdrop, collecting the cup RPAs, whether it's out of 99 or 299, that's a pretty high end set on its own. Do you think that there's less of a desire for the whole hobby collective to go seek out the cup one-of-ones as compared to like, I don't know, UD high gloss or like UD exclusive Young Guns? I'm just wondering if the clientele that is collecting the cup is satisfied with something out of 299 or something out of 99. Do you think there's anything from
Yeah,
that perspective that really impacts it?
yeah. I think there's two ways to think about it, right? I think collecting is comes down to player slash team collectors and then set collectors, right? There are fans like yourself. I know you're a Boston fan.
Yep.
Who will collect mostly Bruins cards. They want all the high end. So when it comes to Pasternak, they want the ultimate rookie, the cup. They want the future watch auto and the high gloss, right? They want all of them. And I'm a little bit like that too with my collection, my team collection. But then, the flip side of it is that some people just prefer owning certain sets, right? And that comes to
Yeah.
a lot of it is legacy, right? I mean, older collectors like myself, I know I can't believe I'm an older collector now, but Cup has been around since 2005, right? And that basically means that all the premier stars in the league right now have a Cup rookie, right? That creates a certain desirability when it comes to having a collection all of one thing, right?
Yeah.
A similar thing you could say about the Future Watch Auto, like another very classic, considered to be an iconic piece of hockey, right? And same with the Young Gun, right? So those three I consider to be the base sets. So you know if you are a higher end collector and you are looking to, let's say, buy a card that's a little bit more expensive of a player you really like, you're probably going to buy the card.
And I think that's something Upper Deck does so well is brand equity. Like if I'm coming from a baseball background, dabble a little bit in basketball and collect some hockey cards with my guys. If you're looking at baseball, if someone were to come up to you and say, "What is the most collectible card of this player?" You could say
Yeah,
their first Bowman Chrome, their first Bowman Chrome Auto, Topps Flagship, Topps Chrome, and then there's a host of parallels in between. But there's not a consensus answer on what a new collector that's just looking to get into baseball cards should look for. In
yeah,
hockey, it's very clear. Like there's a Young Guns, which is fairly obtainable for most collectors if you want
for
to
sure,
get
for
into
sure.
that autograph realm. You have your SP authentic autos, and
Yeah,
then you can graduate up to the cup. And then once you've sort of harnessed that knowledge, then you've opened the door up to the entire hobby, right?
totally, totally agree. And
So
to your point about basketball, I mean, and Upper Deck specifically, it's nice to see them kind of move some of their brands across the sport, right? I mean, I do like the cup exquisite rookies. I mean, they're not true
look at
rookies,
that.
but I mean, it is, look how big the patch is, right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of an homage to how exquisite used to be for other sets, like when they owned the basketball license, right? So I mean, from that perspective, yeah, I would agree that the way that they've dealt with their brand has been, very strong.
And for anyone that didn't pick that up, that was just a Jack Hughes exquisite patch auto, probably one of, if not the most sought after exquisite card in this year's release.
I mean, the Kale McCarr out of eight is probably the big one, right?
Yeah, there's actually I don't know if I want to say it. There's one up at eBay right now
Yeah,
that
that's
I got
eight.
my
That one's
eye
eight. That
on.
one's 8 of 8 though. So
Yeah,
you're going to be competing with a lot of guys for that one,
yeah, gotta open up the pocketbook for that one.
no doubt.
Um, just getting back to 101s real quick. So your collection, it's carefully curated. You need all this patience to sort of lie in wait for these one of ones, but you're sort of waiting for those cards to pop up in eBay, or you have to go out and you have to try and source these cards yourself. I'm sure there's plenty of 101s that you want for your collection that are tied up in other people's collections.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to your experiences sort of procuring those rare cards from other collectors that might not be willing to give it up?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I mean, you can't ever force someone to move something that's in their collection. And again, like to your point, right? There are player collectors and team collectors who just
Yeah.
go crazy for their guys. All right, I'll give you an example. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. I picked both of those one of one shields up recently, rookie shields. Those were cards that have been buried for years. Right? I'd never seen them before now. But obviously, the guy who I bought him from, who was a huge Jets collector, just decided he was going to let those two players go, and suddenly they came on the market. So you're right. I mean, it's kind of a patience game, but it's also kind of having understanding within yourself that you're not going to get them all,
Yeah.
right? Like you're not going to complete the set. You're never going to do it because it's just incredibly difficult. So, I try to be relatively disciplined as well about not chasing guys who I think aren't that good, right? So I'm
Yeah.
not going to go on eBay and overpay, just to have something come in the mail, right? I want to be disciplined. I want to think about what I think a card's actually worth. And sometimes I'll overpay, no doubt, but at the same time, they are one-on-ones. So again, worth whatever someone's willing to pay, right?
Now, how do you usually price those out when you're trying to figure out what to pay and you're going hard after an eBay auction? Do you look to similar players in a set from the same year as like comps, or?
Yeah, I think it's a couple different things, right? Like I always, in terms of shields, I always value the Ultimate Shield the highest because of, again, legacy, right? The Ultimate was the original shield.
Yeah.
The Exquisite Shield is next because it's also autographed, and the third one is the Cup Shield. Um, so there's that, and then, the player versus the year, and how much. Let's say the player is Young Gun or Cup Rookie trades against other players, Young Guns and Cup Rookies, right? But
Yeah.
then you know what? You're going to get surprised a lot by doing that, right? So you take that as your framework and then just say, how much more would I be willing to pay? That makes sense. I'll give you a great example. Last night, I don't know if you saw this. There was a Miro Heiskanen Exquisite Shield on eBay. It was
Yep.
hanging around 900 US until about 5 minutes in. I bid 1800 US because I figured to myself, he's a European defenseman on a non-certain team. And I think he's great, but I don't think he's one of a kind, not Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
So I was in the 1600 US range or 1800 US range, and that card ended up going for 4,000, right? So I mean, you just don't know, right? And
Yeah.
if you really want it, you just have to be willing to go for it. Which I hope
Yeah.
that none of your viewers hear too much and do, because then I have more competition when it comes to acquiring, right?
Well, I think everyone is going to stick to what they know. They're going to explore new things, and that's why I wanted to have you on the channel, just to talk about hockey cards, and that
Sure.
can lead us into our next topic, just 101 hockey cards. But before we get there, I think it takes a lot of guts to go out and spend a good chunk of change on 101s, and for non-seasoned hockey collectors, I don't think that's going to be their first foray into upper deck cards. So
Yeah, it's good.
at
No,
least
I'm not
from
at
my
that point.
viewer base, you aren't going to have that much additional competition. Um, but getting to hockey cards 101, what do you think makes collecting hockey cards different than the other three major sports? So we'll just stick to basketball, baseball, and football for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it's much smaller, right? The hockey market is tiny compared to those, and you can see that we're not getting $5 million LeBron James equivalents, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely different. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's different from that perspective, but we are seeing growth, which is great, right? The other thing about hockey that's a little bit different is that we like something called true rookies. Now, in every other sport but hockey, it just seems like every parallel that's rarer is better. So
Yeah.
your LeBron out of 25 is always better than LeBron out of 50, which is always better than LeBron out of 75, right? Like it makes natural sense that way. But in hockey, it doesn't. And hockey collectors prefer those three key sets that we talked about, right? Your Future Watch autograph out of 999, your Young Gun unnumbered, and then your Cup Rookie, which is out of 249 and 99, right?
Yeah.
And Upper Deck has experimented in the past with, playing around with, jersey numbered rookie cards and short printed rookie cards, golds of 24 and of 12, right? And they just never have caught on the same way. And I suspect it's because that set collectors and people who have kind of older school mentality like myself
Yeah.
have just always had the demand for those true rookie cards. And we'll find rarity either through condition, through grading, or through patches, right?
Yeah,
So
one of the things that I noticed, like I'm a Boston guy, as you had mentioned, and I am trying to collect the Bruins, the big three, your Young Guns, Future Watch Auto, and the cut RPA of Bergeron, Pasternak, Marchand. But I'm
Sure.
also a Cale Makar collector. So I
Okay.
had picked this up, and we
Oh,
showed that
nice.
before
Hey,
we
yeah,
went
yeah.
live. This is his retro Future Watch Auto, and the design is based off of the 2010 design, 09, 10, which is actually Marchand's rookie year.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like looking at these side by side, but this is numbered out of 399. His
Yeah.
regular SP Authentic Future Watch Auto is numbered out of 999. I got this for $150 when the just base Future Watch Auto was going for $300 to $400. So
Yeah.
it's a perfect illustration of your point there that people value that card regardless of whether it is more printed than more limited sets.
Yep. I agree.
Can you speak a little bit to like the US Canadian dynamic in hockey? Something that I've been running into recently is there's a lot of Canadian sellers that have cards that I'd like to acquire, but the VAT, the shipping, it just makes it cost prohibitive to
Yeah.
participate in sort of the lower end of the market. I'm wondering what your take is and uh, how collectors can better navigate that without just paying all these fees and taxes to international shipping.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I use a service called Get It Shipped International for my US shipments, right? And they ship it all there, US to US, and then those guys will get it to me. Much more efficient from that perspective. To your point, right? I mean, look, I like auctions in the states. There's a lot of big U.S. auctions, and I don't want to pay
Yeah,
those customs fees, right? So to your point, that's one way to do it. But obviously, as a Canadian, it's less of an issue on my side. But yeah, I mean, we face the same kind of issues with regards to shipping. I had a package in customs, a very large package in customs stuck from December to April. All right, or and near the end of
geez.
March, and they had no idea where it was in. They knew it was in the New York facility, sorting facility, and then it just disappeared. And it appeared 3.5 months later in Montreal. So, that creates tons of anxiety. It's going to be always going to be a problem in collecting. But at the same time, you kind of have to do with the bad, right? So
Yeah.
you have that dynamic, but at the same time, I mean, you are receiving these in the mail, so it's part of the
Yeah.
status quo, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I know like the ship my cards infrastructure is out there for people that live outside of the United States, but I haven't been able to find an equivalent service the other way around. I'm like, wow, I've taken this for granted for so long. But I think the answer is just pinch your pennies, go up to the expo post COVID and buy take advantage of the USD to Canadian exchange rate.
You know what? That will be the craziest expo, I think.
Yeah.
I think when we finally have expo again, and we all have our vaccines and our cards or whatever, I just think, first of all, we're going to be so much more hygienic. Like every year
Yeah.
at Expo, it's a lot of money and touching and eating and then touching again. And, so that's not going to happen anymore. But,
Yeah.
at the same time, I think it'll be really, really exciting. I think a lot of people will show up. I think we'll have more people than ever who want to collect, a ton of new blood in collecting right now. And it's great,
Yeah.
right? Like, I know some of my peers will tell you that, oh, the young guys, they don't know what they're doing and they don't collect the right way, or they bid me up all the time, they won't buy, blah, 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 right? You know what, to me, that's growing pains, right? I
Yeah.
want the hobby to grow. I want us to all, be better off and better off as we go on. So from my perspective, when that expo hits, you're just going to see a ton of people. Like it's going to be way
Yeah.
more than usual. So yeah, maybe pinch your pennies, come up, or
Yeah.
get a PO box in Niagara Falls and just have someone run
have
it over.
yeah, have hire a carrier. It'll be
There
cheaper
you
if
go,
I buy enough shit.
100%.
Um, yeah, I think there's a responsibility of hobby participants, whether you're a collector, you're a dealer, you're a flipper. And that is to educate people, and that's part of the reason that I put this series together.
Right.
We want people to come in and have a rewarding experience. There's a lot of cards that you can sink your money into. You can get that euphoric high when you're breaking a box, and then the impending doom and regret that you have 20 minutes later, thinking like, "Oh shit, I just sunk $1,000 into this box, and I got 3 Prism Silver rookies that I don't care about."
Yeah.
But teaching them about like what are the important cards in the hobby, who are the important players, and who has the power to stick around can create a more sticky and rewarding experience for them. And that's just going to benefit like the hobby as a whole in the long run. So it's sort of a win-win on everyone's front. You're going to
Oh yeah.
have like the old school folks that are looking at it and saying, I can't get this because like there's new people in the hobby. I used to be able to spend this and get this money, but it's part of the hobby growing and expanding. And we have to embrace it with open arms and welcome those people in.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
All right, so switching to players. In baseball, the market places the highest value on Hall of Famers and 5 tool position players, but most pitchers don't hold any value. In football, you have the long-term value retention, all centered in the quarterbacks, your Brady's, your Mahomes. What do we see hockey collectors valuing the most? Is it position? Is it accolades? Is it their skill?
It's a bit of everything, I think, and I think that's another thing that makes hockey a bit more unique, right? And like,
Yeah,
keep in mind, I don't collect any football, but like, I can just imagine the linebackers get no love on the hobby,
yeah.
right? Like,
Negative love.
you basically gotta be a quarterback, like, and you gotta hit a quarterback, right? I don't think hockey is quite that large of a distance, but certainly you want to collect forwards first, right?
Yeah,
My comment is always, the more they can be on the ESPN highlight reel, the more collectible they are, right? So when Connor McDavid jukes through 4 guys and scores a top shelf goal between his legs, like, you're gonna see that, and you're gonna see that a
yeah,
lot, right? And that's what makes him so collectible. It's not only is he consistent and scoring, and now his team is going to make the playoffs, thankfully, but he is probably the best hockey player of our generation,
yeah,
right? So that creates collectability, right? But guys like Makar, for example, pull a lot of points out of the back end, right? They're great passers, good shooters, a little bit undersized, but certainly if you're creating points, that's one way to be collectible. But unlike kind of baseball where pitchers don't get any love, goalies actually get tons of love in hockey, right? The only problem is that performance in goaltending is such an oscillation because
yeah,
it's so mental, right? So like a pitcher, right? If you're just off your game, your physical tools could all be there. If you're off your game, you're off your game,
yeah.
right? So that's kind of, I guess, the way that hockey works is, you're first and foremost, you're going to be collecting your forwards, right? Next, maybe your goalies, and then, later on down the road, it's kind of the defenseman.
And I'm assuming that it's more offensive defensemen that get the love rather than your lockdown, shutdown D-men.
Yeah, yeah, no, precisely, right? I mean, you're going to be always looking at guys like, Kale McCarr and Quinn Hughes.
Yeah,
When even, the argument can be made that Charlie McAvoy is a better defenseman than either. He just doesn't get as many points, right?
yeah,
So, I mean, it's kind of tough to say from that perspective, right?
yeah. It's tricky because you think about those guys and their longevity and how they're going to be able to do it. And I think about guys like Brent Burns, Eric
Yeah,
Carlson, Shea
sure.
Weber, PK Subban. Like these are guys that were offensive juggernauts, and they are a shell of their former selves. And they're all in what, their early 30s.
Yeah,
Like they're
totally.
going to be in the NHL for a good chunk of time, but they just don't have the same offensive prowess. So I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but hockey falls into the same sort of recency bias that any sport does.
For sure.
What separates the all stars from the all time greats?
It's actually, it's a bit tough to say in that context. recently we've been seeing some of the veteran guys who've been around for a longer period of time, but still have performance. So guys like Kane, right? Probably the best American player ever.
Yep.
Evgeny Malkin, stuck behind Crosby, but an elite player in his own right, right? And we've started seeing them get some hobby love and some hobby action because I think people are seeing them and saying, you know what, those guys have the accolades to make the Hall,
Yeah.
right? The problem I think is when you reach a guy who's like a tweener, right? Like, Erik Karlsson is a great player, and at his peak was the best defenseman in the league, hands down.
Yeah.
Is he a Hall of Famer? It's tough. It's tough. It's still up for grabs, right? It's still a question mark. Right? He never won a cup. He won a couple of Norrises, but he didn't do very much in the playoffs. So, there is that factor. And I think the other thing to think about, especially with defensemen, is that they get beat up a lot, right?
Yeah.
Hockey is an incredibly physical sport, and guys who are like Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes are small, right? Like a Quinn Hughes Milan Lucic board battle is going to be like nasty, like 90%
Yeah.
of the time, right? Like
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is in order to kind of keep that going, you have to avoid injury, right? You have to basically maintain a level of performance that is in line with forwards while at the same time checking and defending in a way that a winger would never have to.
Yeah.
Right. So there is kind of that level of kind of question mark on it. And you're right, recency bias is everything, right? Like you look at a guy like Carter Hart, and I posted recently, I think Carter Hart is gonna be my off-season buy low candidate.
Yeah.
Prior to this season, they thought he was gonna be the best Canadian goalie. They thought he was gonna be our Olympic goalie going forward.
Hmm.
Right. He had all the tools, the size, the speed, the reflexes, the mental to kind of make it as a goaltender, and was playing great hockey in Philly. Right. Of course, the story. Philly, basically imploded this year, and
Yeah.
we have no idea why. Right. But there's no reason why he still can't be. Yet his prices have come down a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, but then we're on to the next one, right? Because now we have Spencer Knight, Igor Shesterkin,
Hmm.
whichever goalie plays, Jack Campbell to some degree, whichever goalie plays great today is
Yeah.
the goal that everyone wants to collect, right?
Yeah. And then we ground ourselves and head back to Ilya Brizgalov and
Yeah, yeah.
Ryan Miller, and
Ryan Miller
I'm
still has the most wins of any American goalie, I think.
that's
I read
crazy.
that today. Yeah. So he's, what, call it what you want. He had an incredibly illustrious career. Brizgalov, not so much.
Yeah. The universe is just so humongously big.
Yeah.
You had made a comment about Kane too, being arguably the greatest U.S. born hockey player. There was, I think it was just some clickbait list. Maybe it was like Bleacher Report, but they had Kane at number one, Madonna at Austin Matthews at number two, and then Madonna at number three, followed by like Brian Leach and some other guys. But I was like, you can't put Austin Matthews ahead of Mike Madonna this early in his career. Like he's got to do it for a couple more years.
You know what? And again, I'm a Bruins fan stuck in Toronto, so this is gonna get me some hate. But like, I think you can. Like, I think Austin Matthews has already shown that he's a super elite player. And it's the goal scoring, the touch, the size, right? Like, you want to talk about five tools? Like, that's pretty much it for hockey, right? Like, when you're that big, can shoot that fast with that type of release and skate, like you're pretty unstoppable, right? And the thing is, the kid's what, 22 years old, 23 years old,
Yeah,
so he's got a lot of years, right?
it's true.
So I think Modano had a very like industrious career. He was a very, very good player, good captain, a good leader. But if I was to peg Austin Matthews' career between Kane and Modano, I'd say he's going to be close to Kane, points wise.
Yeah, I believe it. And like we can bash Toronto all we want. Like they surrounded him with people to like produce. Like they might be the most top heavy team in the NHL. But just like the Bruins did with sort of their super line, Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak, like who do you got on Toronto? Matthews, Marner, and like Nylander.
Tavares,
Yeah.
Foligno. Like they have the difference though is that Boston pays their top line 18 million together, and Toronto pays Austin Matthews 12.
Yeah.
So the delta there is depth, right? So I mean, I'm not going to plug my Bruins because it's always a risk to do that live TV. But I mean, I would say that you're going to see how the depth plays out, the depth game plays out in the playoffs. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, question for you. I don't want you to walk into a bear trap on this one. So if you want to pass, just let me know. But I, as a casual hockey fan that doesn't watch a whole lot of Penguins or Capitals games other than when the Bruins play them, can you speak a little bit to how Sidney Crosby has been anointed the second coming? Like before McDavid came around, he had like the most hype. I'm just looking at it as someone that only gets their information from SportsCenter. You see those top plays. And Ovechkin has the highlight goals. He's got the big hits, the booming slap shots, but it doesn't seem like he has quite the level of hobby love that Crosby has. And as maybe I'm biased, maybe I'm an unbiased observer, Crosby has always had that sort of, maybe it's a narrative, like the whiny attitude. He'll try and accentuate stuff to get some calls. Like, yes, he produces, and yes, he's a good team player, but he doesn't do a lot to like outwardly project it. Am I just reading Sidney Crosby wrong, and everyone is bought into the real narrative, or so? What's going on between those
Yeah,
two players
you
there?
know what? I'm not going to pass on that. I thought about passing. I'm not going to pass on it. I think the way that you're looking at it is a bit of recency bias. You have to remember that Sidney
Mm-hmm.
Crosby is, in his twilight years. He got into this league 2005. Most of
Yeah,
his contemporaries, if you look at that rookie class, are all done. Right, the last ones remaining are Jeff Carter and Ovechkin, right,
yeah,
but even like the Mikko Koivus, Mike Richards, Zach Parise to some degree, like most of these guys are done, right? So that's the first context. The second thing is that he had 2 or 3 major concussions in his career.
yeah,
It changed his game a bit, but the one thing I'll say about early Crosby was that he was exactly like what you see McDavid do today. Right? He had the vision and the hands, and he was just a player above other players, especially at that time in the league when there wasn't as much of a focus on skill. And a lot of guys were just big, right?
yeah,
And you just saw Crosby go outside, inside on defenseman, top shelf, right? His backhand was as good as his forehand, right? He just had all these tools that I think made him a different player, and he really did usher in the generation of skill that we see now, right? Like when you grow up, even if you're a Quinn Hughes and you're playing defense, you still look at a guy like Sidney Crosby like, dang, I want to do that move, right? And
yeah,
like, I think that was part of it, right? And then the other thing is, he's a winner at every level, right? I don't love Crosby. I've always, I've watched him playing at the Bruins just like you have. I think he winds it's in the refs here a lot, but he's
yeah,
won Olympic golds, national titles. He's won, juniors. Of course, he's won Stanley Cups, Hart trophies, right? Like everything except the Calder, and I think, and I'm not sure he's won a Maurice Richard, but I mean, he's just a guy who's taken his team and put it on the back and won. He's a Canadian, right? So that helps as well.
yeah,
Good Canadian story, and and he is generational too. So I think the hype is deserved. Whether Ovechkin deserves the same hype, probably, right? Ovechkin uh, is the best scorer of our generation on a goals basis, right?
yeah,
But it's different. It is different that way, right? I would say that, when you look at a guy like Crosby, he does represent sort of like the LeBron James of hockey,
yeah,
right? This exceptional longevity, this, respect across the league, this kind of understated talent where he can be surrounded with whoever you need to put him with. He's still going to make 1 or 2 plays. You're like, oh, I didn't know that was possible, right? Or I wasn't going to see that,
yeah.
and that's kind of who Sidney Crosby is right now.
Yeah, I think two things you had mentioned there. You said he changed the game, and I immediately thought of Steph Curry. Like, you're right. Like the Bruins had Sean Thornton, a fourth line bruiser, whose job it was to go out and knock people down. Like that type of player doesn't
We
exist
had
in the
Hal
league
Gill,
anymore.
man. We had Hal Gill,
Yeah,
6'7",
the human
like 6'6",
statue.
like no skill, couldn't skate, right? But like that can't happen anymore.
who was the goon that made the All-Star game? John Scott.
John Scott, yeah.
Yeah. Those
Yeah,
guys, they aren't in the NHL anymore. But like putting it into that frame, that context makes a lot of sense. And I think when you have a player that's that special, that can change the narrative on how GMs build teams, like that is important. That's notable. And I think people can take advantage of that. And then you had mentioned recency bias. Like, I think we're forgetting about Ovechkin that for the majority of his career, he was just a regular season performer. Like the Capitals
right,
would always choke in the playoffs. They were the regular season darlings, and then they get booted first round. They go on a hot streak, riding the stick of Ovechkin and Backstrom and Kuznetsov, and then that entire history gets muted a little bit. So
for sure.
like it's very easy for us, and I'm the perfect example of it. I just articulated why I didn't like Crosby and why I liked Ovechkin, but it takes out the first 10 years of their career. And
Totally.
then talking about concussions, like it's such a shame in hockey. Like Mark Savard, 70 to 100 assist seasons, and then he gets popped twice, and the rest of his life is changed because of concussions. I hope it seems like the league has done something to solve it, and maybe it's just removing those fourth line goons, but um, I couldn't agree with you more there.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're gonna shift back to cards for a second.
sure.
We already talked about the cup. We said it's Upper Deck's version of National Treasures. Collectors and investors alike, they'll chase the rookie patch autos, but there's more than just the RPAs in the cup. What advice would you give to collectors who are looking to add their first high-end card, specifically from the cup, to their collection?
Yeah, so hockey is rookie focused. So that's the thing you have to think about first. If you are going to buy a cup card, and it's your first cup card, I would always suggest get the rookie patch auto to start, right? As the player's, performance fluctuates, you're going to be best off holding that piece of memorabilia. And the reason why is basically, you know, uh, if your draft year is 2 years ago and I have your, signature patch from this year, that same card is going to be made, another 15 to 20 times through the player's career,
Yeah.
right? The rookie one is, of course, unique. So, that aspect of it is very, very important in hockey, maybe even more so than in basketball and baseball, right? And so, yeah, my piece of advice is, choose a rookie that you like, maybe one that's not, McDavid, because you don't want to spend 50 grand, or Crosby or Ovi. Choose someone who kind of like fits your budget, and buy up their cup rookies, right? That would be my advice.
Now, for sort of like your, I don't know, third to fourth line tweeners, what's sort of the entry point that people can be looking at dollars wise to get in?
It's different for every team, but like under $100 mostly, right? With a pretty standard patch. I'll give you a couple examples of guys under $100. Like if you think, Trent Frederick on the Bruins, he might make it. He's young, he's got a lot of potential, but who knows what he's going to be? Under $100 mostly, right? Yeah, and that's going to kind of be consistent across the board, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice. Um, Now we have a list of rapid fire questions to close things out here. But before we do you have any other cards in front of you you'd like to show our viewers? Give them a
Yeah,
sneak
sure.
peek
I'll
at
just,
what the Instagram page looks like.
yeah, these are all the new ones that I've just, I've added recently. Just a couple little ones. Here's another shield for the shield collection. That's Nolan Patrick. I have no idea how he's gonna be, but that's a reasonable price, so I picked it up. This is just disgusting. Comes from a good friend of mine, Dylan Morin. That's off the side flag patch of the Matthew Kachuk's, jersey on the shoulder there. So that's pretty crazy. And then, here's a four colors of Zibanejad. He's pretty much been eliminated. I wasn't going to post that one until, Boston had covered, but, maybe a little bit of bad luck. And then this is an Elias Pettersson exquisite. Probably the best patch I've seen so far from this series for Elias, and was able to pick it up recently. So pretty happy about that.
That Elias Pettersson is nasty. Can we take a look at that patch once more?
Yeah, sure. So it's just it's right off the edge of the of their corner patch, or the shoulder patch there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No glare. Yeah, take a look. So it's four colors, maybe 7 or 8 breaks, jersey to patch, just everything you could ask for on a card like that.
For anyone that's coming from one of the other 3 major sports, there's so much more real estate on hockey jerseys to grab a solid patch from, that it puts like the jersey cards in baseball to shame. And when that's what you're used to and that's all you see, it's very refreshing to see just like solid patches matching up with like a gorgeous design, fully articulated on a piece of cardboard. It's awesome.
Yeah, can't agree more.
All right. So we got a couple of questions here. Rapid fire. You got 5 seconds or less to answer them. If there's anything you want to expand upon, we can circle back to them afterwards. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Offensive defenseman or goalie cards?
Goalies.
PSA 10 Young Guns versus raw Future Watch autos?
Raw Future Watch autos.
Tops versus OPG?
OPG.
Modern or vintage?
I only do modern.
Okay. Bruins or Canadians?
Oh, it's the hat. No, I'm kidding. It's obviously the Bruins.
All right. The 1966 Tops Bobby Orr versus the 1979 OPG Gretzky?
The Orr for me.
I know that's a very personal one. The Toronto Expo versus the National?
Oh, the Expo.
And
so
then,
much more hockey.
Yeah. Last question to close it out. What are your favorite hockey card hobby related social media accounts that people can check out?
Yours.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Man, I don't do a lot of this, so I don't know, but mine, yours.
All right. Lee's Sports Cards. We're going to put a link in the description down below, or give you a shout out there. Any of those rapid fire questions you want to revisit and unpack some more?
No, we're good.
No, you don't want to reveal your deep-seated love for the Montreal Canadiens?
Oh, no, I do not.
All right, good stuff. Thanks for joining, Matt. And if you have any questions on hockey cards, the cup, high-end collecting, let us know in the comments down below. You can find Matt at Lee's Sports Cards on Instagram. Go give him a follow. Like I said, he has one of the most impressive high-end hockey collections out there, and I've learned so much from him. I hope you guys can do the same. Till next time, I'm Cardi-C, and we will catch you guys later.